Kid, just look out for yourself.
Mike Ehrmantraut isn't a hero. He's just a thug with better PR. Among the pantheon of morally ambiguous figures populating Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, none has enjoyed quite the same undeserved sainthood as Mike Ehrmantraut. A fan favorite, often labeled the good criminal, Mike is somehow celebrated as the show's grizzled moral compass, the weary professional who just does his job. In truth, Mike is not noble, misunderstood, or quietly virtuous. He is a paid killer who cloaks moral rot in the language of professionalism. Let's start with the facts, not the myth. Mike kills people for money, not for justice, not for love, not even for vengeance most of the time, simply because it's the job. The man's resume reads like a police blotter: executions, intimidation, and a readiness to murder anyone Gus Fring finds inconvenient. The show makes no attempt to hide this. Mike's detachment is his defining trait, and yet that same detachment seems to hypnotize viewers into mistaking indifference for integrity. He isn't stoic, he's hollow. His supposed moral code is another convenient fiction. Mike, who rails against Walter White's recklessness, once planned to kill Jesse Pinkman before Jesse even made his own fateful move against the dealers. So much for pragmatic restraint. Later, Mike decides to outright steal Walt's share of the methylamine, a multi-million-dollar theft justified by a sneer and that smug, superior calm that fans inexplicably worship. One could call it professionalism. Others might call it larceny wrapped in arrogance. He doesn't apologize, doesn't flinch, and certainly doesn't question whether betraying a business partner might make him exactly as self-serving as the time bomb he criticizes. But perhaps the most damning example of Mike's hypocrisy lies in his selective sentimentality. The man who lectures Walt about the consequences of ego is the same one who naively keeps his men alive even when they're clearly liabilities. One of them is already talking to the DEA, but Mr. Pragmatic can't bring himself to act decisively. It's as if his moral compass spins wildly depending on which choice best flatters his image. Mike likes to posture as the level-headed realist, yet his mistakes are driven by the same arrogance he condemns in others, the belief that he can control the uncontrollable. Fans often point to Walt's monstrous acts to elevate Mike by comparison, but at least Walt, for all his moral collapse, risks everything for people he loves. He tries, and fails, often disastrously, to save Jesse, to protect Hank, to preserve his family. He loses his empire, his freedom, and his life trying to make amends, however misguidedly. Mike, meanwhile, sacrifices nothing. His one redeeming motivation, leaving money for his granddaughter, is less a gesture of love than an exercise in delusion. The same man who shoots strangers without remorse imagines that blood money somehow becomes noble once filtered through the innocence of a child. And speaking of Kaylee, let's remember that unforgettable moment when Mike, fleeing the DEA, abandons her alone at the park. The apologists rush to defend him. If he'd stayed, she'd still be alone. But the point is not logistics, it's symbolism. Even his love for his granddaughter, that final shred of humanity, collapses under the weight of his criminal life. The man who justifies everything as being for her ends his story leaving her frightened, unprotected, and forgotten on a playground. His devotion is a myth, his code a convenient script. Mike's defenders often claim he knows who he is, unlike Walt. They insist he's honest about his nature. A soldier, not a schemer. A professional, not a megalomaniac. It's true that Mike never pretends to be a good man, but awareness of evil doesn't redeem it. Being a self-aware thug doesn't make one admirable. It merely makes the self-delusion more articulate. When he berates Walt for being a time bomb, he's really condemning a mirror image. Mike's tragedy isn't that he's corrupted by pride. It's that he's utterly comfortable with his own corruption. His intelligence, of course, is never in doubt. He's competent, resourceful, cautious, the very qualities that draw Gus Fring to him. In a world of chaos and ego, Mike is the rare criminal who appears calm. But competence and conscience are not synonymous. Fans tend to confuse professionalism with principle, mistaking silence for depth. Mike's calm isn't the mark of wisdom. It's the serenity of someone long past caring. And that, perhaps, is why his portrayal occasionally veers into absurdity. For all Breaking Bad's realism, Mike sometimes crosses into comic book territory. The bulletproof pensioner who dismantles squads of armed men with unflappable precision. His sniper escapades and silenced pistol theatrics stretch the show's otherwise grounded tone. He is less a man than a walking archetype, the professional, the noir hitman with a heart of gold, only without the heart. Even his backstory, expanded in Better Call Saul, reinforces the central contradiction. The prequel paints Mike as a man broken by guilt over his son's death, driven to crime out of grief and paternal instinct. It's compelling, even moving, until one remembers that the same guilt-ridden father spends his later years murdering for hire and laundering millions through shell companies. His redemption arc, if it can be called that, is merely a slow, meticulous surrender to the very corruption that destroyed him. Yet despite this, Mike remains beloved. Why? Because he's the anti-Walt. While Walter White embodies ego and chaos, Mike embodies control and restraint. Walt rants, Mike mutters. Walt manipulates, Mike commands. Walt self-destructs, Mike endures, at least until he doesn't. Viewers gravitate toward Mike because he offers a fantasy of competence, the illusion that one can be in the criminal world without losing one's soul. That illusion is seductive, and the show cleverly weaponizes it. But the truth is simpler. Mike Ehrmantraut is no moral compass. He's a thug with manners. His code exists only as long as the paycheck does. His loyalty is transactional. His supposed moral superiority over Walt collapses the moment he decides to steal from him and sneer while doing it. He murders without passion, obeys without question, and dies without revelation. When he tells Walt, "Shut the hell up and let me die in peace," it's less an act of dignity than resignation. The calm of a man who has long since stopped wrestling with right and wrong. This isn't to say he's a poorly written character. Quite the opposite. Mike's brilliance lies in his hypocrisy. He is the perfect embodiment of the show's central thesis, that everyone believes their evil serves a purpose. Gus claims his violence maintains order. Walt says his empire secures his family's future. Mike insists he's just doing his job. Different scripts, same delusion. And yet, it's impossible to fully despise him. Jonathan Banks infuses Mike with such weary intelligence that his cynicism almost feels earned. He's the ghost of morality past, a man who once believed in order, now clinging to professionalism as the last remnant of decency. That's the tragedy. He doesn't seek redemption because he no longer believes in it. In the end, Mike's legend survives not because he's good, but because he's cool. The bald head, the deadpan stare, the gravelly wisdom. It's the aesthetic of morality without the burden of it. He's the fantasy of competence in a world of chaos. But beneath the myth lies a man no different from those he despises, corrupt, self-righteous, and damned. So yes, Mike Ehrmantraut is fascinating, formidable, and unforgettable, but virtuous? Hardly. His fans may call him the moral one, but morality that kills on command isn't morality at all. It's just efficiency. And in the world of Breaking Bad, efficiency is often the deadliest sin of all. Stick around, we're just getting started. Subscribe.